In the neighborhood of Charlestown, Boston, bank robberies are a frequent occurrence throughout the year. 4 lifelong friends, Doug, Jem, Glonsey, and Des, have become exceptionally skilled at these heists, with Doug serving as the mastermind behind their operations. When they see a guard entering a bank with a cash bag, they seize the opportunity to force their way inside with him. They order everyone present to the ground and confiscate their phones. Then, after clearing out the teller stations, they compel the manager, Claire, to open the vault. Once they have taken the money, the group begins pouring bleach around the site to destroy any possible DNA evidence, unaware that Claire has activated a silent alarm with her foot. Upon realizing the alarm was triggered, Jem assaults the assistant manager, mistakenly believing he was responsible, which allows Claire to catch a glimpse of a tattoo on Jem's neck. Realizing the police are about to surround them, Jem makes the impulsive decision to take Claire as a hostage, a move the crew never usually makes. They blindfold her before removing their masks and, once they are a safe distance from the bank, they release her at a beach. Special Agent Frawley takes charge of the FBI investigation, noting that the thieves were meticulous and left no evidence behind, marking them as professionals. Although his team finds the getaway van, it has been torched, and none of the local residents are willing to provide witness statements. The following day, Frawley questions Claire, who shares what little she knows but purposefully omits the detail about the tattoo because the robbers threatened to kill her if she cooperated. Meanwhile, the 4 thieves meet to discuss Jem's reckless decision to take a hostage, but the situation worsens when Jem reveals he has Claire's ID and knows she lives in their neighborhood. He suggests following her to ensure she stays intimidated, but Doug insists on doing it himself because he no longer trusts Jem's increasingly violent behavior. Afterward, Doug and Jem move through the neighborhood to pay their gun and car suppliers, as well as Fergie, an Irish mobster who uses a flower shop as a front. They spend the evening drinking and gambling, but the next night, while at a bar, they are approached by Jem's sister, Chris. She is a single mother who used to be with Doug. She tells him she misses him, but Doug wants nothing to do with her and leaves. Later, while Doug is watching television at home, Chris uses her old copy of his keys to let herself in and initiates an intimate encounter with him on the couch. The next day, Doug begins trailing Claire and follows her into a laundromat. When she starts crying over faded bloodstains on her clothing, he takes the opportunity to approach her, pretending to offer comfort. To make her feel better, he takes her out for a drink where they begin to bond. However, Doug lies, claiming he works in construction and that his father lives in the suburbs rather than being in prison. He then takes her on a boat ride, claiming the vessel belongs to a friend, though he is actually breaking into it for the occasion. The following day, Doug meets with Jem and assures him that Claire is under control and does not need to be killed. Meanwhile, after interrogating and assaulting a criminal contact, Frawley finally secures a lead. Frawley meets Claire for lunch to ask more questions and attempts to flirt, but she mentions she is already seeing someone. Claire and Doug continue dating, a fact Doug keeps hidden from his gang. As they grow closer, they share more about their lives. Claire admits she is cooperating with the FBI, and Doug pretends to be merely curious while asking if they have any potential suspects. She also mentions the tattoo she saw, expressing hesitation about telling Frawley because she fears it might get her killed. Doug advises her to keep that information to herself for the time being, suggesting it could be a useful card to play later, especially if she wants to avoid entering witness protection. During one of their dates, Claire explains that she has to take a longer route to work because local gang members throw bottles at her car on the usual road. After dropping her off, Doug picks up Jem, and they go to intimidate the men. While Doug only intended to beat them and plant drugs to force them out, Jem becomes overly aggressive, shooting one man in the leg and exposing his face to them. Doug is deeply unsettled by Jem's escalating violence. In the meantime, Frawley discovers Des's employment file at Vericom, noting that his sick days align perfectly with various bank robberies. This lead allows the FBI to tail him to a family barbecue, where they identify the entire gang, though they still lack the hard evidence needed to make an arrest. For now, Frawley orders his agents to maintain surveillance on all of them. Later, while Doug and Claire are having lunch, Jem unexpectedly shows up and joins them while Claire is briefly away from the table. Doug, worried his secret will be exposed, tries unsuccessfully to get Jem to leave. When Claire returns, a shocked Jem plays along with the conversation, and Doug uses a goodbye handshake as an excuse to cover the tattoo on Jem's neck with his hand. Afterward, Jem confronts Doug about her, arguing that it is a dangerous idea to be involved with the one person who could send them to prison. Though he hasn't told the rest of the crew, he demands Doug focus on their next heist. Doug expresses doubts about the upcoming job and the people they are working with, but when Jem insists, Doug agrees on the condition that this will be his final operation. When the day of the operation arrives, they prepare by gathering hair from a salon to plant as false evidence and thoroughly cleaning themselves and their equipment with bleach to remove any DNA. They then follow an armored truck and initiate the robbery as soon as it parks. While things initially go smoothly, one of the guards manages to aim his weapon at them. With the police closing in, they kill the guard and retreat to their car, driving away as fast as possible to avoid capture. They cause several accidents during the pursuit, and when the police finally corner them, they open fire before escaping back the way they came. Glownsy utilizes risky driving maneuvers to cause the police cruisers to collide, allowing them to finally lose their pursuers. They meet their fourth team member at a secondary location, switch vehicles, and set the getaway car on fire to block the road for the police. Frawley, monitoring the situation from his office, orders the police to close the bridges, but the thieves cross just before the blockade is established. As they switch vehicles once more, a nearby police officer spots them but chooses to look the other way. While they still lack concrete proof, Frawley brings the four men in for questioning. Jem remains silent after requesting an attorney, and Doug, knowing the FBI has no evidence, tells Frawley that they have been aware of the surveillance all along. Frawley's next move is to attempt to gather more information from Claire, only to discover she has quit her job. Becoming suspicious, he has her phone tapped and learns she has remained in contact with Doug. Meanwhile, Doug meets with Claire to give her a diamond necklace and learns she has quit. He takes the opportunity to ask her to run away with him, and she agrees. After their date, Frawley visits Claire, notices the new necklace, and shows her Doug's criminal profile to reveal the truth. In the meantime, Doug meets with Jem, who has a new assignment from Fergie. Doug refuses the job, stating he is finished with that life, which enrages Jem. He accuses Doug of abandoning Chris and her child, though Doug reminds him that no one knows who the father is. Doug then visits Fergie to deliver the same message, but Fergie refuses to let him go, insisting that Doug is the brains of the operation. He threatens to harm Claire if Doug does not cooperate. Doug rushes to Claire's apartment to ensure she is safe, but she orders him to leave without letting him explain or apologize. From then on, he keeps an eye on her building and sees one of Fergie's thugs leave a funeral wreath at her door. Doug destroys it, finally realizing he has no choice but to take the job. Doug approaches Claire again and promises he will never hurt her, noting that while he has robbed many banks, he has never killed anyone. He asks her to wait for him before he departs. The gang gathers to hear Fergie's plan. He has inside information to rob Fenway Park on the morning after a major game when the safes will be full. Frawley approaches Chris at a bar, thinking she may be the weak link in the group. After some deceptive flirting, he reveals his badge and implies he knows she is a mule for Fergie. Chris provides him with a false lead, so on the day of the heist, Frawley and his team follow the wrong truck. Meanwhile, Chris visits Doug to ask if she can join him in his new life, but he turns her away, telling her he is leaving with someone else. Frawley later finds Chris in the hospital after she crashes her car while intoxicated. He offers her and her child protection in exchange for information. Feeling exploited, she gives in and tells him about the plan for Fenway Park. While Des uses his expertise as an electrician to disable the alarms and security cameras, Doug and Jem dress as police officers and are granted entry to the stadium by one of Fergie's contacts. They encounter several employees and guards, but when their police ruse fails, they draw their weapons and force the men to the floor so they can tie them up. They proceed to the cash room and order the staff to open the door, threatening their families to prevent any distress calls. They are allowed inside and, after filling their bags with as much money as possible, they head to the parking lot where Glownsy and Des are waiting with an ambulance. The FBI has already surrounded the perimeter, and as soon as Jem spots them trying to sneak in, he opens fire. A heavy shootout between the thieves and the agents begins, and Glownsy is wounded in the middle of it. The FBI deploys stun grenades and sends agents inside who shoot Des as soon as he stands up. Glownsy decides on a desperate plan, He will drive out to draw the FBI's attention while Doug and Jem change back into their police costumes to slip away through the main door unnoticed. Though Doug worries for Glonzy's safety, Glonzy insists he is a great driver and knows how to escape. The ambulance manages to travel down the block, but when the FBI cannot stop it by shooting the wheels, a sniper kills Glonzy with a headshot. While the FBI focuses on the ambulance, thinking the whole crew is inside, Doug and Jem successfully change into their police uniforms and easily escape by mingling with other officers. The FBI receives information from the bound employees that they were ambushed by men dressed as police, prompting Frawley to search for officers behaving suspiciously. He quickly identifies Jem walking away with a heavy bag and follows him into a parking lot. As soon as Frawley calls out his name, Jem opens fire, and he soon finds himself surrounded by the FBI and police while Doug watches from across the street. Frawley manages to wound Jem in the leg, forcing him to hide behind a mailbox, only to realize he is out of ammunition. Refusing to return to prison, he commits suicide by walking out with his guns in hand, causing the agents to shoot him on the spot. Doug escapes by stealing a police cruiser while the authorities are occupied with Jem's body. He drives to the flower shop and kills both Fergie and his associate, emerging unharmed because he is wearing a bulletproof vest. Afterward, Doug retrieves some hidden cash and calls Claire, whose apartment is being monitored by the FBI. Claire asks him to come over, claiming she is alone, but Doug realizes she is lying because he is observing the building from a neighboring rooftop. He still agrees to go, asking her to meet him at the back door in an hour. After he apologizes to her once more, Claire provides a subtle clue to let him know it is a trap, and Doug plays along. While the FBI waits for someone who will never arrive, Doug buries some money in her garden and leaves an insulting note on Frawley's car. He then departs the city by train. Frawley remains suspicious of Claire, but he lacks the evidence to charge her. Days later, she discovers the money Doug left for her along with a note suggesting they may one day see each other again.
Please like and subscribe.